Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Dan Fox. I'm one of the co-founders of Control Map, and I'm on the product management team. Appreciate you all joining. This is the vCISO Wave 3. It's the third in a three-part series, and we're going to focus today on the deliverables for a compliance as a service offering. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day. We're going to jump right in here to the agenda. So we're going to start off with just a brief intro, kind of background of ScalePad and how compliance as a service fits in. And we're going to dive in and focus in on deliverables and also on the scalability of delivering that service to your customers. And then I'm going to also give you a preview into some things that we have coming down the pipe. So you're going to be some of the first ones to see some things that we're working on. We're really excited about that we'll be releasing very soon. And then we'll send you off with some takeaways. We'll welcome any questions along the way. I have Kelly on the chat who will help with that. And then we'll leave time at the end for questions as well. So if you're interested in the first couple of recordings here, we have the first webinar, which focused on kind of the high level of delivering the service, which is really a good introduction for compliance as a service on the business side. And then we focused in on kind of how to build recurring value of your compliance as a service offering. And what services to include and how this is not a one and done project, but an ongoing program. And that's what we kind of focused in on webinar 2. Those are available in our community. And those will continue to live there for a while, so you can always go back and check them out. And then this one will land there in the future as well, but this is the live recording, so thank you so much for joining. We also have an additional series coming up, which we'll mention, and we'll include that in the email, where we'll focus also on the vCISO practice and how to build that practice in your MSP. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye on your email. We'll send that over to you for a link. But looking at the ScalePad vision and how this kind of fits in compliance as a service, ScalePad was built by MSP founders, and we're all about basically helping your MSP become an MVP with your customers. And we know that means delivering services that help you have happy customers, and that's what we're all about. We built our platform, we take all the integrations and the data, and we do that with the goal of delivering it so that you look attractive to your customers and your customers have an attractive solution to work with. We do this through a platform approach, and we have a number of different solutions that we work through. But we're going to focus on this webinar on Control Map and the cybersecurity and the compliance side. But we do have a number of other solutions here. And we use a ScalePad hub and OS to hook in to the tools that you use, like your PSAs, your RMMs. It kind of works like an API aggregator for us. And that was really a key for us joining in the ScalePad family. So this journey with ScalePad goes back to 2016. Some people still even know us as Warranty Master. I go to about 3 or 4 conferences a year, all the cybersecurity ones, and some people still say, "Oh yeah, you're the Warranty Master guys." That's still true. We just rebranded, and then we joined in all these other solutions. And the end goal again is to deliver kind of a if you will, kind of like a QBR for your customers on each of these different categories. And our category here is the cybersecurity and the compliance bit. And we came in March of 2023, and very quickly we helped ScalePad deliver on their goal of SOC 2 and ISO 27001. You can find those today on our scalepad.com/security page. And you can actually download our SOC 3, which is just a public version of the SOC 2. And the reason we chose those is because SOC 2 is kind of like a North American-based business cybersecurity compliance program. And then ISO 27001 is like the European counterpart. And they work really well together to kind of merge those together. And we actually have a federal one that we're working on next. So that you kind of mix and match what makes sense for you. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. We focused on it primarily in the first one. I'm just going to touch on it in a real high level on this one. These cybersecurity compliance frameworks are all built to basically provide a layered security defense in-depth approach. They start off with that policies and procedures and awareness at the top level, and they basically layer in protections to ultimately protect the data and the applications that manage that data at the bottom. That's what these security compliance programs are all about. And ideally, the impact of cyber compliance when you implement it in your business as an MSP or on your clients' businesses is a fewfold. It's to boost security posture, helps you stay current with laws and regulations, reduce liability by basically leaning on a best practice instead of your own standards. And when you have all that in place and you're kind of operating on that week in, week out, year in, year out, you can move up market faster because upmarket customers expect this. This is kind of like become the requirement. And that's a lot of times why you're doing this. People don't typically do this because they just want to, like, oh, this is a great idea. It is actually best practices written down. That is what these are. However, oftentimes we see that people need a little bit of a push. And what we see is that upmarket businesses and industries and governments are that push to require this. So what we're going to focus in on here is what pieces of your CAS service here, what to include, and then the deliverables behind those. And I'm going to kind of demo that. This isn't going to be an entire like full-fledged demo. So I want to encourage you, if you do want a full-fledged demo, to reach out for that is custom to your situation. But this is going to focus in on these categories here. The security compliance journey, when you look at it, starts off oftentimes with an assessment or assessing the clients where they are. And then you're basically addressing the gaps and remediating. So you identify gaps through the assessment process, and then you would potentially go through and audit those results if you're, for instance, looking for a certifiable compliance standard, which I'll get into here in just a moment. And then you recur that with monitoring, and this kind of rinses and repeats quarterly and annually. So this CAS process, again, it's an ongoing program. It's not one and done. And the whole point is to improve security posture along the way. And the gaps that you identify kind of become the roadmap that you can work from. So let's focus on some of these deliverables. So some of these are the actual process that we're delivering is kind of its own deliverable, but there are physical deliverables in a way or digital deliverables. So the policies that you're working on is a deliverable that you would work through, and I'll show you what that kind of looks like for your customers. Your audit at the end of the day, that's kind of like what I was just showing with the security side and the SOC 2 audit or the ISO 27001 audit. That is an end deliverable goal that you can deliver to your customer if that is what you're going to do, or it's the assessment side, and that would be that assessment report with the gaps and remediating those gaps. That is a deliverable in a report that you deliver on a regular basis. And folks that are delivering vCISO services are doing this through an assessment process or through an audit process. The compliance posture that you're looking at, improving the compliance posture. We have a new dashboard. I'm going to show you that. And then also a trust center. The trust center is basically where you publish and post where you stand for your security posture, kind of like we do with scalepad.com/security. When you actually request our SOC 2, we do that through Control Maps, through Control Maps Trust Center. So I'll show you what that looks like here in a moment as well. And then all of this, you're trying to improve security posture along the way and remediating risks, improving that posture, improving that risk score to make it a better place for your customers along the way. So when it comes to the services, I always encourage people to understand your client's needs first. Start there. Understand what industry they're in. Understand, what they're sitting on with that assessment. So you start with the industry, so you make sure you're identifying the right framework to start with, and then you start with the appropriate assessment to move forward. I'm just going to give you an example of what that might look like with CIS. So CIS is the most popular framework in the MSP space for good reason. It's a really good prescriptive framework, and it's generalist, and it's become accepted in sort of the insurance and the financial services industries as kind of just a best practice to apply. So if you, let's say, have a customer with FINRA or SEC requirements, they just tell you to implement a security framework. They don't tell you which one, but CIS is one that's chosen quite often. Another one might be FTC safeguards or some others. But when you're looking at CIS, you look at these control categories. These are a lot of times the services that you're already doing. Now, you may be missing a couple, and you may be missing some of the kind of sub-control bullets here. But the point is to point to a best practice and say, hey, look, you have 9 out of the 18. Over this next year, we're going to work to remediate and kind of implement what we need for those other 9. So you kind of baseline here, as you kind of see with like your inventory. It's like to understand where you're sitting. And then you layer in these services, right? You can layer in data protection services, vulnerability scanning, malware defenses, data recovery services, network monitoring, security awareness training. These are all services that you're offering and often already are, or is part of an upgraded package for MSPs. This is kind of part of working together with the MSP and the vCISO side. Now, the other side is like things that you would monitor. So when you layer in that monitoring piece, like the security configuration, making sure that that's implemented correctly and not changing, account management, these are all, again, services related, but this is part of the regular monitoring. And you can kind of start to see why CIS becomes a really good choice for the MSP industry. Now, that's by no means the only framework. We support close to 60 different frameworks. And when you look at these different industries, they all have their own flavor of this. But in fact, most of these best practices are very much the same. They're just different legal language or little small requirements for the specific industry. And we expect to have over 100 frameworks before we're done, but we're supporting over 60 at this point. Each of these are very industry specific, but all of these industries are ultimately just trying to protect that data, like I showed on the layered security screen, trying to protect that at the bottom there. The public sector is also doing a big push. CMMC is probably one of the most notable with DoD, but CMMC as an example, NIST 800-171 is going to spread throughout the federal government in the US, but it's not just the US. We're talking the EU, the UK, Australia, Canada. This is a global challenge that we're all tackling to basically try to protect our data and protect from breaches. So getting back to the service part, I kind of like this slide to explain where you go with versus your assessment or your audit. So those are almost like a fork in the road decision. And sometimes you're doing both. For instance, in CMMC, if you're doing level 2, you have to do both. You have to both do an assessment, you have to get a SPURS score, and you have to deliver audit-like data points, like your audit evidence, up to the DIB for review and to be able to ultimately able to get approval on that. So these are some examples of frameworks that may be self-assess only to implement, like CIS, HIPAA, NIST, FTC safeguards, or third-party audited, like the Trustmark or ISO, SOC 2, and others. So I'm going to pause there and jump over to our platform with this in mind to look at some deliverables. So first off, I mentioned policies here. So this is our policy screen, and we provide you with a whole bunch of templates. And these are going to self-load whenever you pick a framework. So when you select a framework, it'll just load in whatever policies you need, and you can always add more to them. You get to choose if you want to manage that in control map, or you can link out to existing policy if you already have one. The key, though, is that we have these mapped to every objective that is relevant for this particular policy, regardless of the content. Yeah, we give you the template there, but we've got it already mapped in so that you know that you've hit those items, those control objectives that you have implemented for whatever framework you're trying to implement. And again, these end up being kind of similar depending on whatever framework you load. In fact, when you load a framework and you load a second framework in control map, you'll notice you're 50% or 70% already done because the same recurring requirements are in there. We have this cross-mapped for you already. So these policies are one of your deliverables, and 2 ways to deliver these policies. One of them is to deliver them on the business side. The other one is actually employees have to acknowledge them, which we have a process built in there for that. Another deliverable here would be your audits. So we have an audit portion built in. You can create this audit right off of any of your frameworks. We'll auto load whatever the objectives are and then all the evidence. And then there's a little way that you can go and walk through and be able to test those with your auditor, and they can put in notes and all those good things. Very helpful for internal audits or working with a third party, however you want to work there. So that's another deliverable there. Trust Center focusing in on the trust center. So this is where you can build up a page to demonstrate that, hey, we have CIS implemented, and here's the policies that back that up, and here's some of the framework objectives that I want to share. These are all controllable. And you can have these, if you'd like, request an NDA just through a checkbox, say, hey, I'm not going to disclose this. And you can then share this out to your clients, or your clients' clients rather, for the vendor due diligence process. So these are all kind of part of the deliverable here piece. I would put risk and vendor risk also on the deliverable. So you're basically managing their risk process. And we do have built in here, we have the risks from ISO and NIST already preloaded for you in different categories. And you just have to go through and score them to be able to deliver and show, hey, here is your risk rating. And you can go very deep on this. You can actually go all the way into remediation and be able to show the impact score, all of those things. Or you can go very light and just say, hey, look, we're only going to spend an hour or two on this, and be able to look through all your risks and understand things that we should work on for this coming year. This again becomes part of your roadmap. This is another key deliverable of a vCISO service. The reason I mentioned two different models there is that we see people selling this service in buckets of hours a lot of times. So we'll see, for instance, somebody might say, my full vCISO service includes all these services plus 10 hours a month, and delivering the service. Whereas others might say, look, I'll just do 2 hours a month and I'll deliver this many services. And you can flex it accordingly, and you change the pricing and the packaging accordingly. And that's how you can go deeper on a risk basis, or not as deep. Same with vendor risk. Maybe you do include a basic vendor risk, or you push it back to the customer, say, hey, customer, this is all meant to be customer facing, by the way. Customer, you're going to run vendor risk. I'm going to be out of it, but I'll show you how to do it. So we have all those tools built in here as well. This is another deliverable to assess the risk of your vendors. The other deliverable I was going to mention too is integration. So we do integrate, and this comes down to the monitoring piece. So we're monitoring people and systems, and we integrate across a lot of different platforms. And when you hook it up to an integration, we're doing a couple things. We're actually hooked into whatever the other third-party platform is, and we're doing compliance checks across the platform and auto-loading evidence for basically to know that we've got these things in place for whatever the frameworks are. Again, here's all those objectives that this one particular compliance check does, but then it also provides alerts and monitoring on top of that. Again, it's another deliverable for you as a service that you're offering to your customers that would probably be up and above your MSP standard offering. So this is another one that we have built into the platform. I want to show you, I'm going to pause here for a moment and show you our new dashboard that I'm very excited about. This is our compliance health dashboard, and this will be going in the next couple weeks. And this is the scoring, which is a new thing for us, where you're going to have a compliance health score, where you can then work on another deliverable and show, what else needs to be done, not just to finish the framework, which is kind of what we show today, is the statuses, if you will, of how far along you are, but also the health, like where are you in the compliance health. This is going to be the first iteration of this, so it's really a cool thing to be able to share, and there's a little export button there where you can dump it out and deliver it. We have another piece coming in on a report. I'll show you a couple slides of that here in a moment, where it's a nice PDF, and all of our reports can be automated and delivered on a schedule. So you can basically automate this and say, every month, deliver my client the compliance health report, and they can then see that this is where this is where the customer stands, and here's the improvement we did with my 2 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, whatever you did for the customer over that month or quarter or whatever time frame you want to work on. Couple things that are in here too is, beyond this, kind of your statuses, which we have today. We just kind of cleaned them up, made them look fancy. This is another thing we've been asked for, is a progress history over time. And so this is new. I'm very excited about it, where we're going to show you your gradual changes. And, hey, you hired me, we started at 0, and look at how we've moved up and improved over the year, for instance. that'll be in this dashboard and the report. We also have comparisons, like where was I 30 days ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, if you wanted to pull that up, and that's across the whole platform here. And then we already have to do in there. We're just going to throw the Kanban board. We have our Kanban board in there today under evidence. We're just using that now in your to-dos, which is kind of a nice little bonus. So that I'm pretty excited is coming out. We did already come out with this MSP dashboard's been around for a couple years, but just a couple months ago, we came out with cloning, where we can clone a tenant. And this is a big key to scalability, where once you've got this in place, you can basically say, look, I'm going to take my CMMC that I've done for this one client. I always implement Azure GCC. I've always got the same tech stack. I'm going to just rinse and repeat it. You can just quickly rinse and repeat this through I have the same vendors, let's say. I'm going to select those, and you can then copy this over to the new customer. Now, it doesn't copy evidence, but we are going to make an option for optional, because the evidence is typically unique to the customer, but we've heard some instances where it's would be nice to have some of it sprinkled in and you would clean it up. So we're going to make that available to you. We're always listening to your feedback. Please keep it coming in. The community, we monitor for your feedback in the community. There's a place to put in ideas. And then, of course, when you send things over to support or myself. So this is the MSP dashboard. There's also integrations here at this level, and we're by no means done. We've got some really exciting things coming out in the coming couple quarters that we will be announcing. All right, so with scaling, I want to just call out that this is a team sport. When you're working with your couple of hours, some of that time should be allocated toward coordinating with your customer so that you can be able to implement, maybe leverage some of their resources. For instance, maybe an admin or maybe their executive team to review some of the things that you have implemented there. And you can scale this out beyond yourself. You can look at yourself kind of like the program manager, and then you want to ideally push pieces of work out to others. And then automate as much as you can. We're built for automation. Everything we look at from the lens of trying to automate it further. We have AI enhancements coming down the pipe that we're super excited about that'll enhance you even further and automate you even further. So that's exciting. And then once you've got your process, just rinse and repeat it over and over. It makes it really easy. So just like you do with your MSP service across 5 customers, 10 customers, 20 customers, we do have big MSPs at scale implementing this for 30 plus, 50 plus customers at scale. This can be scaled up when you do it properly. And this is a look at just a summary of those services. Again, delivering that compliance framework, those controls objectives is in itself a service. The compliance assessments, the penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, those are extra services, but those should be layered in. The gaps become your roadmap. This concept is very clear in all the frameworks. NIST calls them POAM items or plan of action milestones, that you would see the gap, and then we're going to remediate it over the next 6 months or year, and then you would work with the customer, or you could maybe not be the person who delivers that service. You just say, hey, look, this is something you need to work on. You don't have to do it all. Some of it is just pointing out the gap and then going from there. Third-party vendor risk is another one, is just working through the risk management process. That is a requirement for every framework. It's just a matter of what part you're going to implement it at what level. Same with all the policies, InfoSec, incident response. Those policies go pretty deep. They cover everything across your security posture piece. So really valuable to spend time and implement and have the customer review them. And then ultimately try to get them to a good place where you're proud to deliver that trust page, proud to deliver that compliance score, and that it's in a good place for them, and that their security posture improved and they're more secure and less likely for breaches. If one should occur, if a breach does occur, you would be in a better place because you implemented a third-party best practice like CIS or NIST, and you'd be able to lean on that and say, hey, we implemented a best practice. We're going to go through and remediate this breach. It actually brings down your risk as a service provider, as an MSP, and your customers. So here's that dashboard. just putting this in the slide here for reference. The report, essentially, you can kind of see similar graphics, but we provide a little bit more explanation, put it into a nice PDF. This is brandable. You can put your own logos in here. You could take off our control map things, all that good stuff. And then here's just another look at some of those visuals on that PDF or Word doc report. So we always like to export things in both an editable format. So we'll have it in Word for you, and then also PDF, so you can be able to choose what you want for editability there. So that's what Control Map's all about. We're here to be your vCISO partner. We're here to help you provide these services in a scalable manner. And we're here to keep walking with you and teaching you how to do this along the way. We support 60 plus frameworks today. We have 5 or so more that we're looking to get out in the next quarter. And then I think, again, before we're done in the next couple of years, I think we'll be over 100 because there is just that many out there. We do take this automation approach. So we hook in to all of these different platforms directly from Control Map, and these are like enterprise level systems like AWS, Azure, all of these types of platforms, Salesforce. But then we also hook into all the MSP tools. We do that through our ScalePad API aggregator, that hub, and then we're aligned with you on the MSP side, and we're going to keep expanding those integrations, over time. You probably see them announced. I think we just announced another one last week. We just keep announcing new ones here. So that was a lot of information. I really appreciate everybody taking the time. I'm going to share some resources here. We're going to send some links over, I think, over the chat, our ScalePad community, and also where to find more info if you're looking for a specific demo for your specific use case. And then I also want to encourage you to check out the Compliance Bootcamp. We'll make sure these links are in the follow-up email for you. And just thank you for the time. I think we have a few minutes. We're going to cover some questions, but thanks everybody for joining. And again, please follow me on LinkedIn, reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, as would our partner team. Thank you.